The Girl in the Rain. Rain fell hard on the metal roofs of the spaceport as ships came and went in the sky above. Rinya sat quietly in the corner near a cargo container. Her skin was pale purple, and her long silver hair was wet from the cold rain. She held her knees close to her chest and stared at the ground. People passed by, but no one looked at her. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her feet were bare and shaking. She had been sitting there for 2 days. Rinya was once part of a noble family on the planet Dreza. But when the test came to measure the future strength of children, Rinya failed. The others had special abilities. Rinya did not. Her parents said she was a waste of food and space. Her brother pushed her into a transport pod and dropped her at the spaceport without goodbye. They erased her name from the family tree. Now, she was just a girl with no name, no home, and no future. Across the port, a human named Eli Mercer was walking back to his small ship. He was an engineer and had just fixed a landing gear for a merchant ship. He was tired, hungry, and ready to sleep, but something made him stop. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a small figure curled in the rain. He looked again. The girl was barely moving. People walked past her like she didn't exist. Eli walked closer. The girl did not react. She looked frozen. He slowly knelt down in front of her and placed his toolkit on the ground. She looked up, a little afraid. Her eyes were large and shining but full of pain. Eli took off his jacket and offered it to her. She stared at it, then at him. She did not speak. He spoke gently. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" She blinked once and then looked down again. Eli did not push. He placed the jacket over her shoulders and waited. She slowly pulled it tighter around herself. That small movement told him she wanted to live. He reached into his pocket and took out a protein bar. "Here, eat this," he said. She looked at the bar, then took it slowly. She ate it in small, careful bites. Eli sat beside her, not saying much. The rain kept falling, but for a moment it felt quiet. After some time, Eli stood up and looked at her again. "Do you want to come with me?" he asked. She did not answer, but she stood up and followed him. She walked slowly, her legs weak. He led her to his ship, a small freighter called the Luna Drift. Inside, it was warm, and dry. Eli helped her sit on the cot and gave her a towel. She dried her face and hands, still quiet. He brought her a blanket and let her rest. She kept holding a small piece of cloth in her hand. It had a symbol on it from the Dreza noble houses. Eli noticed but did not ask. She had lost everything and still held on to this small thing. That meant it was important. Eli sat down in the pilot seat and looked at her from the corner of his eye. She had curled up in the blanket and was now asleep. Her breathing was soft but steady. He sighed and leaned back. He knew the spaceport laws. Harboring an unregistered alien could cause trouble. But he didn't care. She was just a child, maybe 15 or 16. No one deserved to be left like that. He opened his comms panel and sent a message to a human relief group, but no answer came. Too busy. He checked local shelters. None accepted Dreza girls. They called them unstable, unpredictable, unwanted. Eli looked at the girl again. She was sleeping peacefully now. He remembered his own sister who had died during the war on Terran 5. She had been left alone too. No one had helped her. That memory made his chest hurt. He whispered to himself, "Not this time," and turned off the lights in the cockpit. Outside, the rain slowed, but the air stayed cold. Inside the Luna Drift, a forgotten alien girl finally had warmth, a blanket, and a place to sleep. It wasn't much, but it was more than she had before. And for the first time since she was thrown away by her family, Rinya dreamed not of fear, but of stars shining gently above her. The broken voice. Morning came with soft light through the ships. The window. Rinya woke up slowly, her body still tired but warmer than before. The blanket smelled like old oil and metal, but it was the first warm thing she had felt in days. She sat up and looked around. The ship was small but clean. She could hear tools moving and soft humming coming from another room. Eli was in the engine bay, fixing a loose wire. He had let her sleep in while he worked. He didn't know much about her, not even her name. But the sadness in her eyes told him enough. She had seen pain no one her age should ever feel. When he heard soft footsteps, he turned and saw her standing in the doorway. She was wearing one of his clean shirts, rolled up at the sleeves, and the blanket still around her shoulders. She looked unsure, like a shadow that might disappear if anyone noticed her. "Hey," he said gently, setting the tool down. "You hungry?" She gave a small nod. Ellie walked to the kitchen unit and warmed up some nutrient soup. He placed the bowl in front of her and handed her a spoon. She sat down quietly and began to eat, slow and careful. She still didn't speak. Eli waited patiently, not asking questions. He had learned that silence sometimes says more than words. After a while, he asked, "Do you have a name?" She looked at him, then looked away. "Can you speak?" He asked softly. She opened her mouth, but only a weak breath came out. She tried again, but her throat seemed to close. Her hands shook, and she looked down in shame. Eli realized then. Her voice was broken. He pulled up his comm device and typed a message. He turned the screen to her. It said, "Can you write or type?" She blinked, then slowly reached for the screen. Her fingers trembled as she typed, "Rinya, Rinya." Eli read aloud, "That's a beautiful name." A tiny smile appeared on her lips, but it vanished quickly. Eli sat across from her and typed another message. "Do you have a family?" She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she typed, "They left me, that was all." She said, "Nothing more." Eli didn't press. He simply nodded and typed, "You're safe now." Rinya's fingers hovered over the screen. She typed, "Why?" Eli looked into her eyes and answered out loud, "Because you matter. That's enough for me." She blinked fast, her eyes watering, and she quickly looked away. Later that day, Eli took her to the medical bay on board. It was small but had basic tools. He used a soft scanner on her throat. The results showed deep bruising and damage to her vocal cords. Recent, maybe only a few days old, most likely from being grabbed or choked. Eli clenched his jaw. He gave her a soothing gel and told her to rest. He printed a small translator device for her, a voice box she could wear around her neck that would speak what she typed. She hesitated to use it at first, but he encouraged her. That night, she tried it. She typed slowly, and the device said in a gentle voice, "Thank you." Eli smiled. "You're welcome." Over the next few days, Rinya began to change. She still stayed quiet most of the time, but she watched everything Eli did. She studied how he worked with wires and machines. She sat near him while he fixed old drone parts and cleaned rusted circuits. She even helped once, handing him the right tool before he asked. "You're a fast learner," he said. The voice box replied, "I want to be useful." Eli looked at her with kind eyes. "You already are," but outside the ship, things were not quiet. Word was spreading. Patrols were tightening security. Rumors of a runaway noble girl from Dredza reached even the lower levels of the station. Some said she was dangerous. Others said she carried a rare gene. Something her family wanted buried. Eli kept the ship locked and didn't let her leave. He didn't tell her the rumors. He just kept her safe one night. She came to him while he was checking flight logs. She typed, "Are you going to send me away?" He shook his head. "No. Even if they come for me, I'll protect you," he said firmly. "That's a promise." Rinya stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. That night, for the first time, she did not sleep curled up in fear. She slept with her hands open and relaxed, and in the cockpit, Eli stayed awake just a little longer, watching the stars, wondering how a girl once called a burden could feel more human than most people he had ever met. The first laugh, The Luna drift floated quietly in orbit above a red-banded moon, its engines in standby mode. Inside, the hum of soft lights filled the small ship as Rinya stood beside a table filled with parts. Her eyes followed Eli's hands closely as he twisted wires into a small module. She didn't speak, but her expression showed focus. She wanted to understand. To be useful, Eli pointed at a circuit. That's the power line. If it burns out, the whole panel dies. Rinya nodded. She typed on her device. What happens then? Eli smirked. Then we float in darkness, cold and blind. Her fingers paused, then typed again. That sounds bad. Eli laughed. It was short and rough but real. Rinya blinked, surprised. It was the first time she had seen him smile like that. You've got a sense of humor, huh? He asked. She tilted her head. I'm learning. Later that day, Eli climbed under a broken panel near the reactor. He handed her a light stick. Just shine this here, and if I scream, don't panic. Probably just a shock. Rinya raised an eyebrow and pointed at the panel. Dangerous? Only if I'm dumb, he said, then disappeared under the wall A. Few minutes later, there was a loud snap and Eli shouted, Ow! That stupid wire bit me! From above, Rinya let out a soft sound. Light, airy, and unfamiliar. A laugh. A real laugh. Eli froze. He slid out from under the panel and looked up. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand, surprised by herself. You just laughed, Eli said with a grin. That's good. That's really good. Rinya blushed slightly, a soft glow appearing on her cheeks. Her fingers moved on the keyboard. You sounded like a broken droid. Eli laughed again. Well, I'm glad I amused you. Next time I get electrocuted, I'll charge a ticket. That evening, they shared food and warmth inside the cockpit. Rinya ate slowly, but her eyes no longer looked empty. She looked lighter. Where did you learn to work with machines? She typed. Eli leaned back in his seat. Earth was rough when I was a kid. I had to fix things to survive. My mom ran a scrapyard. I liked pulling old junk apart and putting it back together. I guess it stuck with me. Rinya stared at the food in her bowl. Her fingers moved slowly. My world hated broken things. They threw them away. Even people. Eli looked at her, but didn't speak. He knew some words cut too deep to touch, so he simply nodded. Later that night, Rinya sat in the engine room alone. She took apart a small power cell, copying Eli's movements from earlier. She didn't know why, but it made her feel safe, like she was building something real. Suddenly, a soft knock echoed on the outside hull. A scanning light passed across the window. Rinya froze. Eli stepped into the room and motioned for her to stay quiet. He moved toward the hatch and looked through the external camera. A group of aliens in dark uniforms stood outside. Dreza military symbols glowed on their shoulders. Eli's jaw tightened. He opened the comm silently and spoke through the speaker. State your business. A voice crackled back. We received a report that an untagged Dreza female was seen boarding your ship. Open the hatch. Eli didn't move. This is a registered human vessel. You have no authority here. She is property of Dreza High Command. Return her, or face consequences. Eli looked over his shoulder. Rinya stood in the hallway trembling. She had heard everything. Her fingers typed quickly. They're here for me. Eli typed on his pad and showed it to her. Not letting them take you. He activated the privacy shields and blocked external scanners. The ship hummed softly as the defense grid powered up. The aliens outside pounded. The hull but soon backed away. They didn't want a diplomatic incident. Not yet. After they left, Eli sat beside her on the floor. We'll figure this out. You're not going back to them, Rinya typed. They'll come again. He nodded. Then we'll be ready next time. There was a long silence between them. Finally, Rinya typed something new. Can I fix something now? Eli raised an eyebrow. Like what? She looked at the power cell she had taken apart. Her fingers moved. Your reactor filter is dusty. Eli smiled. Then I guess you'd better clean it, engineer. And just like that, in the soft light of the Luna drift, the girl once thrown away found something to laugh about and something to repair. Not just circuits, but maybe herself too. The threat, the sun rose slowly over the orbiting station where the Luna drift was docked for fuel and supplies. The sky was filled with ships coming and going, blinking lights flashing like stars in motion. Inside the ship, Rinya worked with a quiet focus. Her hands moved across wires and panels with more confidence now. She had learned fast. Every screw she tightened made her feel like she belonged. At least here, in this small ship, Eli entered the control room carrying a data pad and a drink. He paused when he saw her replacing a damaged fuse near the navigation relay. He leaned against the wall and watched for a moment. You're getting good, he said. She looked back and typed on her device. You're a good teacher. He smiled. That's a first. Rinya turned her eyes back to the panel. For a moment, it felt like a normal day, like she was just a girl learning a trade from a kind man. But deep inside, she knew peace like this never lasted for long. That afternoon, Eli left to grab parts from the market. He locked the ship and told Rinya to stay inside. She nodded and promised. She didn't want to risk being seen. She was cleaning the tool drawer when the ship suddenly shuddered. A dull knock echoed from the outer hatch. Rinya froze. She moved slowly to the monitor and checked the external camera too. Dreza soldiers stood at the door. Their armor was dark with silver markings. The crest of her family's house clearly shone. They had tracked her here. One of them pressed the "Com" button. This is House Veritech security. Open your hatch. You are harboring stolen property. Rinya backed away from the screen, her breath quickening. She typed into the ship's warning system. Emergency lockdown engaged. The lights turned red for a second. Then dimmed. Eli returned to find the ship in full lockdown. He saw the soldiers and did not hesitate. He dropped the parts bag and walked straight toward them. Step back from my ship, Eli said calmly. The taller soldier turned. You are holding a defective member of House Veritech. Return her or face legal action. Eli didn't blink. She's not property. She's a person. And she's under human protection now. She's broken. The other soldier said coldly. Her voice was destroyed in the testing. She's worthless. Eli stepped closer. Then why chase her across 3 systems? There was a pause. The soldiers didn't answer. Eli could see it in their eyes. They feared something. Not her weakness, but her difference. He reached for his wrist console and tapped a few commands. A loud tone echoed as a legal barrier activated around the Luna drift. A light blue energy field surrounded the ship. Any move against her is now a move against the Terran Accord. Eli said, try it, and I'll make sure the media hears all about the little girl your noble house tried to erase. The soldiers looked at each other. One tapped his comm. After a moment, both stepped back without a word and left. Eli stayed in place until they were gone inside. Rinya was hiding behind the engine wall. When Eli entered, she stood slowly, her eyes filled with fear. They found me. She typed. He nodded. They did. But they won't touch you while I'm here. Why do they want me back? She asked through her device. Eli sat on the floor, beside her. I don't think it's because you're weak. I think it's the opposite. Rinya frowned. I'm dangerous. No, he said gently. You're special. They're scared of that. You've got something they don't understand. And instead of accepting it, they want to bury it. She stared at her hands. Then I'll always be hunted. Eli reached out and tapped the metal of the ship. Then we keep flying. We don't stop. We learn. We grow. And if anyone tries to hurt you again... He stopped, then smiled faintly. Well, they'll find out that humans aren't good at giving up. Rinya gave a small nod. Her fingers moved again. Will I always be a burden? Eli looked her in the eyes. Not to me. Never to me. That night, Rinya couldn't sleep. She sat by the window and looked at the stars. Her reflection stared back, tired but stronger than before. She didn't want to hide forever. She didn't want to run. Something inside her had begun to burn. A quiet fire that wanted more than just survival. She wanted to live her own life. And deep in her heart, for the first time, she believed she had someone who would help her fight for it. Her hidden gift. The Luna drift floated far beyond the main station now, hiding in the shadow of a cold asteroid field. Eli had changed course after the last threat, guiding the ship to a forgotten mining belt no one visited anymore. They needed time to think, to breathe, to plan inside the ship. Rinya sat at the control panel, her eyes locked on a glowing screen. Eli stood behind her, arms crossed, watching silently. She was tracing star paths, calculating routes better than any basic nav system. You've never done this before, Eli said. She looked back at him and typed, It feels natural. Eli nodded slowly. You sure you're not secretly part computer? Her voice box spoke softly. Maybe I am. That would explain a lot. They both smiled, but something strange pulled at Eli's thoughts. Rinya wasn't just a quick learner. She seemed to understand machines on a deeper level. More like instinct than training. Later that day, the power flickered. Just for a moment. Lights dimmed. A soft buzz ran through the floor. Eli looked up. What was that? Rinya stood up, alert. Something's wrong. They moved quickly to the engine bay. A coolant pipe had burst. The core was heating up. One more failure, and the entire ship could go dark. I'll shut down the primary line, Eli said, rushing to the control panel, but Rinya didn't wait. She moved to the core itself, placed her hand gently against the side, and closed her eyes. Room hummed. The core glowed brighter, not in warning but in response. Lines of ancient alien code shimmered along the wall. The ship's systems realigned. Power returned to full. Eli froze. Rinya, what did you do? She opened her eyes. I don't know. I just felt it. Eli stepped closer. The markings still glowed where her hand had touched. This isn't from my ship. This language, it's not human. Rinya stepped back, scared. Did I break something? No. Eli whispered. You saved us, but this changes everything. That night, Eli searched through old ship records trying to match the symbols. They were ancient, from a lost tech civilization no longer active. It was the kind of code found in ruins, on relics, never alive in ships today. How did you do that? He asked again. Rinya sat quietly, fingers tapping. I don't know. I didn't learn it. It's just in me. Eli leaned back. Maybe your family didn't throw you away because you were broken. Maybe they were afraid of what you really are. She looked at him. What am I? Eli didn't have the answer. But deep inside, he knew Rinya was something rare. A living link to old technology. Maybe a carrier of forgotten knowledge. Maybe even something designed a few days later. While making repairs, Eli left the ship briefly to collect metal from an abandoned station nearby. Rinya stayed behind while waiting. She walked into the storage bay, where older parts and strange objects were kept. One small black cube caught her eye. It had been useless before, completely offline. She reached out and touched it. The cube blinked once, then again, and then it opened. A soft light came out of it, and a projection rose above. A star map glowing with planets and systems no one had seen before. Names appeared in the air in the same strange language. And at the center, a mark, one that matched the symbol on the cloth she had carried since childhood. Rinya backed away slowly, her heart racing. Her past wasn't just about rejection. It was hiding something. When Eli returned, she showed him the cube. He watched in silence as the projection glowed. "This came from you," he said. "Not the cube, not the ship. You unlocked it," Rinya whispered. "Then what do I do now?" Eli looked at her, calm and steady. "Now? Now you decide what kind of future you want. We can hide, or we can find out the truth. Whatever they buried, whatever they were scared of, you deserve to know." Rinya stared at the map again. Her fingers moved slowly. "I want to know who I am. Then we'll go," Eli said. "Together." She nodded. That night, she didn't dream of the past. She dreamed of stars she'd never seen, a home that might not be gone, and a future where she wasn't a burden. But the key. The second chance. The Luna drift moved through deep space, following the star map Rinya had unlocked. The stars outside the window looked different now. Brighter. Not because they had changed, but because she had. Eli sat in the pilot seat, eyes focused, hands steady. Rinya sat beside him, her fingers hovering over the console. She had memorized the route, every turn, every hidden gate, every unknown signal. It was all inside her now. They reached the edge of a dead system. The air was quiet. No broadcasts, no traffic. Only a giant ring structure floating in the void. It was covered in dust, broken pieces, and strange alien writing that glowed faintly as they approached. "That's the place," Eli said, tapping. "The screen matches the center of the star map." Rinya leaned closer. Her eyes reflected the ring's light. "It looks sad." "Maybe," Eli replied, "but not empty. I'd bet anything there's something alive in there, or waiting to be alive again." He flew the ship slowly toward the ring. As they got closer, a soft vibration filled the cabin. The ship responded on its own. Lights blinked. Systems shifted. Rinya looked down. Her hands were glowing faintly. Not burning. Not hurting. Just a soft light under her skin. Eli looked at her. "Are you okay?" She nodded. "It's like something is calling me. Not words. Just warmth." The ring opened. A slow, silent door. The ship floated inside without a sound. Inside the structure, thousands of small lights flickered to life, like stars waking from sleep. A voice came through the speakers, not in words but feelings. "Welcome. Recognition." Peace. Rinya stood slowly and walked to the center of the ship. She placed her hand on the console again. This time, it didn't just respond. It sang. Lights danced around her. The ship glowed like a heart that had begun to beat again. Eli stood behind her, stunned. "You're not just connected to this tech," he whispered. "You're part of it." A new star map appeared. It showed hidden worlds, ancient roots, forgotten knowledge. And one line of text appeared in the old language. Rinya read it aloud, her voice faint but clear. "Daughter of the core." Her voice. It came back. It cracked slightly, but it was hers. Eli blinked. "You spoke." Rinya placed a hand on her throat. "It healed me." Tears formed in her eyes. She had not heard her own voice in so long that it felt like hearing sunlight. Suddenly, a signal flashed nearby. A Dreza warship appeared out of warp, scanning the area. It was her family's crest again. House Veritek. They had tracked her one last time. Eli jumped into the pilot seat. "They followed us." Rinya stood still. "Let them come." The Dreza ship broadcasted a message. "Return the asset, or we will fire." Eli was about to respond, but Rinya stopped him. She stepped forward and touched the comms button herself. "This is Rinya of Dreza," she said, her voice strong and smooth now. "Not an asset, not a burden. I am daughter of the core, and I will never return to you." The silence that followed was long. The warship hovered, unsure. Then the ring responded. A beam of golden light shot toward the Dreza ship, not to destroy, but to disable. Their engines shut down. Their weapons powered off. The ship floated dead, in space. Eli stared in awe. "Did you do that?" Rinya turned and smiled. "No, the ring did. I just gave it permission." He chuckled. "You've come a long way from the girl sitting in the rain." She looked at him, her eyes filled with calm. "Because someone gave me a second chance." Eli leaned against the wall. "Nah, you gave it to yourself. I just handed you a blanket and a sandwich." They shared a quiet laugh. Soon, other ships began to appear. Old travelers, explorers, even forgotten drones, all drawn by the beacon Rinya had awakened. The core was alive again, and so was its guardian. She sent one final message through the stars. Not just to her family, not just to the people who had called her useless, but to anyone who had ever been left behind. You are not broken. You are not trash. You are not too late. You are not alone. And far away, in places Rinya would never see, other girls like her, abandoned, lost, afraid, heard that message, and believed it in the center of the galaxy. A human and an alien girl stood side by side. Not master and servant. Not rescuer and rescued. Just two people who prove that sometimes. All it takes is one second chance to change the stars. The end. The message. Across stars. Rinya stood in the heart of the ancient ring station, her hand resting on a glowing panel that pulsed softly under her fingers. Her silver hair flowed gently in the artificial air as quiet voices from the past whispered through the walls. Around her, systems hummed. Lights flickered. The station was alive now. Because of her, Eli stood nearby, arms folded, watching her with quiet pride. He still wore his old mechanic jacket, grease on his sleeves. But his eyes were different. He had seen too much to be the same. A few months ago, he was just a lonely engineer on a quiet freighter. Now he stood beside a girl who could shape the future. "How are you feeling?" he asked. Rinya turned slowly, her voice calm and strong. "Now, like I finally belong somewhere." "You never didn't," Eli said, "but I'm glad you believe it now too." The ring station had begun to send out signals, silent waves of data across systems, soft beacons that called to old ships, ancient tech, and even people with unknown gifts like Rinya. They didn't know how many would hear. But the signal was clear. The core was awake that morning. The two of them sat in the control room, looking at the new star map. It kept expanding. Worlds that had vanished from charts were returning. Lost data, hidden technology, secret doors across the galaxy, all flowing. Back because of Rinya's touch, Ellie turned to her. "What happens now?" Rinya looked thoughtful. "We rebuild. We invite others, not just humans, not just Dreza. Anyone who was thrown away. Everyone deserves a second chance." Eli nodded. "Even the broken ones?" "Especially them," she said. A soft ping interrupted their moment. A ship approached. Small, worn, carrying a single signal. It was a rescue shuttle. Inside was a young alien boy, injured and weak. His parents had tried to hide him from their world's purge laws. He was marked unfit. The station had called to him. Rinya ran to the airlock, helped carry the boy to medical, and stayed by his side while the machines repaired his wounds. He blinked slowly, looked up at her, and whispered, "Are you like me?" She smiled. "I was, but now I'm me, and soon you'll be you too." Word spread, first quietly, then faster. Within weeks, more ships arrived, small vessels carrying people once abandoned. Girls, boys, hybrids, machines with minds, even quiet old warriors who had lost their place in the world. They came because the message reached them. You are not a mistake. Eli set up workshops in the lower levels. He taught the children how to fix panels, build scanners, cook food, clean vents. He gave them something simple: purpose. Rinya walked the halls with calm strength. People followed her not because she was powerful, but because she understood their pain. She listened. She remembered names. She made time for those no one else did. One day, an official message arrived from Dreza's High Council, cold and polished. Return the girl. Return the station. You are in violation of noble rights. Eli laughed and deleted the message without showing it to her. He already knew what she'd say. Later, Rinya found out anyway. You didn't tell me. He shrugged. Didn't seem important. We're not going back. No, she said. We're going forward. They sat on the observation deck that night, side by side. Through the large glass, they watched the stars pass by slowly. New travelers were docking. Others were leaving to spread the message to nearby sectors. It had become more than a signal. It was hope. Rinya whispered, "Do you ever wonder why you stopped for me that day?" Eli looked at her. "I don't wonder. I just know I was meant to. If you hadn't, I wouldn't be here. If I hadn't," he said, "a lot of people wouldn't be here now." She rested her head lightly on his shoulder. No more fear in her body. No more shame. Just peace. The core had found its guardian, and the galaxy had found a voice for those who were never heard. In every message sent out from the station, there was a simple closing line, spoken in dozens of languages. The stars are for everyone. And as long as Rinya breathed, she would make sure that was true. The end.